You were saying about your dad, the question he was about to ask you. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm talking to my dad. I'm finally having the conversation that you had with your mom, and I, had said to myself, God, I waited way too long, and I missed the opportunity with mom, and now I got dad, and all of a sudden we're having this really intense conversation. Both of us are crying, Joshua, and I had never seen my dad cry in my life. I had never seen him cry one time in all the years that I was alive, so it was very deep. It was very emotional. And then he says, the question. And he said, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Absolutely." I was kind of surprised that he was going to ask me a question. He said, "Well, when your mother was alive and she had died 6 months earlier, when she was lucid, we would talk for a few minutes and we always asked ourselves the question, do you think we did the right job in parenting David? Do you think we did enough? Were we good enough parents? Because it was very difficult with me until I left the house, which was the greatest gift my parents ever got. Was me getting out of the house. But until I left the house, it was hard, man. It was hard on I really had a hard time with my whole family, and I love my brother and sister to death. And I eventually learned how to love my mom and dad, but it wasn't easy. And so for him to say to me, he wanted to ask a question, and then, were we good parents for you? Did we do enough? Could we done something more? Did we let you down in any way? I was blown away. My dad had never been that vulnerable with me ever. We had never talked about Joshua. We never talked about anything important. We really didn't. And I'm in, I'm not embarrassed. What am I? As a counselor, I wasn't using my tools and my skills with my family that I would have given someone else the advice to use with their family. Now I was graced by God or by somebody to have that opportunity to have that conversation. And it was a very short period of time later that my dad died, so I was really lucky. But the two things that, that we're talking about that seem outside of the world of recovery, but they're a huge part of it is one is giving back. Find a way to give back once you've hit that 365 days without relapse, without cross addiction, and you're not a dry drunk. Like, try to find ways to support other people, even if it means you put a post on social media. Sobriety is worth it. Please give it a shot. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. If you don't want to be super vulnerable, don't be super vulnerable. You could put things up like, I have friends who have struggled with addictions in the past. They are free now by getting help. If you're in that situation, please do the same thing. You don't even have to talk about yourself. If you want to keep it, be anonymous, that's fine. But I think we do have to push this movement forward. We have to have individuals that are willing to step out and stand up and to say, my life has really changed. And I'll tell you what, it's beautiful waking up without a hangover. It's beautiful waking up and not wondering how I spent $250 last night. It's beautiful waking up and whatever it is, make those comments. And then the secondary thing is have those intimate conversations. The first intimate conversation to have is with yourself. And Joshua, I love writing, and all the writing that you and I do together, it's immense. And we believe it's the key to healing. But, write about your strengths and write about your weaknesses. If we're talking about a conversation with mom or dad or grandma or grandpa, write about if you have something to apologize for. That's intimacy. Saying, I'm really sorry that, I could tell my parents, I'm really sorry from 0 to 18 that I was in your life. Because I didn't bring a lot of, in my opinion, I brought more hardship than joy. Now they may say something differently, right? If they were here today, they'd say, "Oh, David, that's my mom. My mom was the most classic, more optimistic than Jesus Christ, for God's sake. I swear to God, she was so optimistic. It didn't matter what you talked about. There was always going to be an option to heal. There was always going to be another day. There was always going to be something we're going to learn from this that's going to be positive, and from 0 to 18, you don't want to hear that crap,
Yeah.
you don't want someone saying everything's going to be great because you're going through hard crap. You're going through puberty, and no one knows what it's like going through puberty but you when it comes to that kind of stuff. You're going through all of these challenges, peer pressure. And how do you talk to your mom and dad about peer pressure when you're 0 to 18, right? Like, how do you bring this stuff up? But we now have younger clients You know, we have more, and now Joshua, since the pandemic started, we have more 20, 24, 28, 30-year-old men, freaking A, coming to us than we've ever had in 43 years. You know, so people are awakening, and most of the men that are coming for some form of addiction. You know, porn addiction is one of the fastest rising addictions over the last 3 years. Porn addiction has gone through the freaking roof. People with too much time on their hands, working from home, not underneath supervision, bored out of their minds, or anxious or frustrated or whatever it might be. And, you know, a porn addiction can give you the same momentary relief that a drink can, or a cigarette can, you know, or snorting coke or heroin can. I mean, you know, it's addictions are addictions. They're all meant to do one thing: get us out of our current reality, because we don't have the coping skills and how to do it without something yet. So until we hit that yet and find out that there's 1,000 different things we can do other than use, we will keep using. And that's why your message, Joshua, and your YouTube videos are so crucial, because you know what the heck I'm talking about. And you bring your messages to the masses to allow them to realize that you're willing to be open and vulnerable and honest about your challenges, as you have been today, which opens the doorway, Joshua, for more people to say, "Oh my God, this kid from London is talking to me," or whatever city you're from. This kid is talking about his challenges, and he's not ashamed of them. He doesn't have guilt around that. He's just talking about, this was a part of my previous life, and this is what I'm working on. You know, you are a huge asset for people who are struggling to listen to watch. And if anyone knows how much work Joshua does, you'd be blown freaking away. And he'll never talk about it, so I will. He's completing his master's degree. He's in a full-time job. He's a musician in a band. He's taking courses on personal growth on a weekly basis. I have no idea how he does it, quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, but I will tell you that if you follow this podcast and if you do what Joshua does, you will also see massive success like he sees in his life, because he's willing to do the freaking work. So pay attention to his messages, continue to come back to his podcast, take his wisdom and apply it in your freaking life, so you can see the changes that Joshua has seen in his life.
Thank you for that, David. Yeah, thank you so much. I've honestly really enjoyed that yet again, and I think every time we do an interview, David, I'm always learning something, and I appreciate your kind words as well. So, coming to a wrap on it, David, is there any kind of closing message based on everything we've talked about? We've talked about a lot since recovery, sobriety, addiction, in terms of if anyone is in the midst of, say, just multiple addictions, they're chronically depressed, they have social anxiety, they're really unsure where to go with all this, and trying to start unraveling the addictions and start to heal, learn to manage your emotions. What is the first step in someone in that kind of very severe situation?
Joshua, number one is to raise your hand and to say you need help. And if it means that the only thing, let's say you're really struggling financially, and the only thing you can afford is 12-step meetings because they're free, or they cost $1 or whatever, depending on the country you're in. But if you have no money, they'll take you. If that's the only thing you can do, do it. Because then at least you're saying to yourself, I need help. And you're walking into a room, or, you know, there's meetings online. If you go to intherooms.com, anywhere in the world, you can go to meetings online. You don't even have to go into a room, intherooms.com. Now, you know, I'm not a huge fan of 12-step, but hey, if that's all you can do, at least it's a start. Number one. Number two, my real recommendation is find someone to work with one-on-one. Really do the work. And then number three, while you're doing the work, grab the book that Joshua shared, David Essel's Permanent Alcohol and Life Recovery. Grab the book. It's extremely inexpensive. It is. Thank you, Joshua. There's the cover of it right there. It's available at Amazon. It is worth $1 million. I'm saying that to you because it's 30 years of work, of my work in recovery, put into a freaking book for $15 or whatever it is. So grab that. And the last thing I'm going to say is this. If you go to YouTube and Google me, David Essel, and you go to my channel, just start putting in my channel in the search box, addiction, recovery, alcohol, drugs, cross addiction, relapse. Just put a word in and allow all of our videos for free. For gosh sake, you can watch. We have 2,000 videos on the YouTube channel. I bet probably 400 of them have something to do with addiction and recovery. So jump on it, grab the free information. Like there's, and Joshua, what I just gave here was 3 things under $15: meetings for free, a book for $15, or 400 videos for free, to help you. So, and this is us giving back. This is us looking at this world and saying, we have learned so much. Maybe not everyone can afford to work with me, but you can surely afford free videos. You can surely afford to go to YouTube and watch 400 videos at no cost. So do something. And the more you do, the better you'll feel, and your odds of recovery will increase dramatically.
Yeah, that is so true. And I definitely found David I've done David's level 1 life coaching, mental health, and I'm sorry, misremembering the title of it now, David, the mental health life coaching course, the level 1. And I think because of the way you do that course, it's very different than other courses. It's very, very it's very intense. You end up doing a lot in a short space of time. But the thing what I really appreciated about it is that you mentioned partway through the course of trying to really study some of the videos you mentioned on your channel, and doing that with a pen and paper, even though that sounds people would be like, that sounds overly so simple, pen and paper, watching a video. To write it down and like kind of engrave it in your subconscious, and you're rewatching all these different videos on a particular subject. So for mine, doing David's course was on codependency, and I think David's probably the best on that topic. Going through and writing it down and being very, very honest about it. What takeaways of it? What pearls of wisdom does it include in the video? It makes a huge, huge difference. I know we've spoken about this, David, many times, but particularly as it relates to codependency, which is a very fascinating addiction, and it's very interesting the way it operates so cunningly, and that it can really taint a lot. Really, it's not, if you are heroin addict, as severe as that is, it's just kind of just you're addicted to heroin. But when it's codependency, it can affect on such a grand scale, really, in your life. And I know you've mentioned, David, on a lot of videos that is kind of really at the core of a lot of it, the issues with codependency. I just wonder if you could maybe just talk about that just very briefly. How and what is codependency for people who don't know what it is, and how does it affect our lives?
Yeah, your question is a question, Joshua, that we could probably spend 15 hours answering. What is codependency? It is so massive, right? In 2002, after doing this work for so long, I realized that codependency was without a doubt the largest addiction in the world. I mean, and it is today, and it blows away everything. But let's look at something. Every addiction has an arm of codependency. So we're codependent on alcohol to be social. We're codependent on heroin, maybe to be social, but to escape reality. We're codependent on sugar to escape reality once again, right? So every addiction is codependency. And then we have the addiction of codependency itself, which is oftentimes most seen in relationships, whether it's with mom, dad, sister, brother, lover, next door neighbor, best friends, whatever it might be. And we'll talk about the opposites, right? The one part of codependency is the individual that is walking on eggshells constantly. They're judging their words. They're afraid that if they say this in front of this person, it might upset them. But if they say this in front of this person, it might upset them. And oh my God, it's hell on wheels. To walk on eggshells is so difficult. And what that is an extremely low level of self-confidence and self-esteem. The fear of being judged, of criticized, of rejected, of abandoned. That's all codependency stuff. And I'd say that a very large percentage of this world, well, we know it's a large addiction in the world, but a large percentage of individuals who are codependent fall into this category. Extremely low self-confidence, low self-esteem. Now, this also means that they can be swept up into anything so easily, like a cult. And I know that sounds like far out there, but it's not. Like individuals who are very codependent, they're looking for an identity. They have no self-confidence or self-esteem. They can be like, when I was 12, I was extremely codependent. I wanted the acceptance of 16-year-old boys. And the only way that they would accept me is if I drank beer. And that started my world of addiction. I was codependent as hell. I wanted acceptance. And so, however that comes about, we oftentimes will start to hang around with the wrong crowd. We'll start to do things that are not for our highest interest because we crave to be accepted, right? And then the other side of the coin is that individual that's way too independent. And so they don't want to ever listen to someone else's opinion. They're codependent on always being right. That's the flip side, right? So we have the codependent that's fearful of never being right. And then we have the codependent that knows they're always right. Now, that side of codependency can actually start to go into the narcissistic scale, and now I have to make this clear because it's so important. Narcissistic personality disorder has its legs and arms and its teeth wrapped around 2% of the world's population, at the very much 4%. So everyone's a narcissist, though. If you go into a room and say, how many people know a narcissist, everyone's going to raise their hand. But it's a very rare. Full-blown narcissism is extremely rare, but there's a scale of 1 to 10, and 1 would be just self-centeredness. So a lot of people could fall onto the scale of narcissistic personality disorder while never being officially named a narcissist. They may have very poor traits. And so I always want to make sure when I talk about narcissism that I make this point, Joshua, because it's an overused term. But at that far end spectrum of codependency, that narcissistic feeling of needing to be right, knowing you're right, never needing help, never needing anyone else's opinion, that's a form of codependency as well. So in a book that you know very well, Love and Relationship Secrets That Everyone Needs to Know, it's a complete book on codependency. It is a deep dive into the world of codependency. We talk about codependency with friends, with family members, with lovers, with everything we cover. So for anyone who's interested in, looking at what that is like and what true codependency is, that would be the book to uncover it.
Love that, David. Love that. Yeah, that's also, I think, when it came down to working with David, especially, I think a big thing for me was this kind of surrendering. There was so much resistance, and I know you've spoke about that with your own journey, David, as well. That it came to me when I started discovering about codependency that I didn't want to have to look at all this stuff. I just wanted it to be this kind of like light switch. You just flip the light switch and it all disappears and everything's rosy. And it really is a hero's journey. You have to. There's no other way around it if you want to solve it. And I was watching one of our first interviews, David, and you had said something to the effect of, you know, until you've really resolved the severe codependency issues, you'll really never be at peace. You know, you said about walking on eggshells, speaking on eggshells. You know, there is such a letting go in codependency and healing it, and it isn't an overnight thing. I think, like you were saying, a lot of the videos is that it's so engraved in our subconscious mind that to try and overcome it is probably one of the most bravest things anyone could really do once you've gone through all the other letting go of the substance addictions or whatever, video games, whatever it is. The codependency is, because I think it's at such the core of our personality. To shift that is very, very difficult, but very doable at the same time.
Yes.
And I think if you're working with a professional who really understands it, which you do, David, it makes it that much easier to catch it. But yeah, that is an interesting thing I think about codependency. It's by far, I think, one of the most fascinating addictions, that it has so many faces, and it's very, very easy to be codependent in society. I can go to a fast food restaurant, I can go to a bar, I can go to this and that, all within a very short space. I can be with loads of other people who are codependent, who are gossiping, need to be right all the time, overly dominant with people. And I think that's a big thing, because I think a lot of people wouldn't probably presume someone who's being overly controlling or overly aggressive. People worship that in society. That, oh my god, like, and people who are very codependent in nature tend to kind of submit to them kinds of people and put them on a pedestal. Could you maybe just talk about that, David? And I'll edit this down, David, if you can't speak now. I know we've kind of just carried on, but I kind of get in the flow with it, and then just kind of wanted to kind of get more golden nuggets of wisdom. in terms of that, with that side of codependency, and I know you said that about narcissism as well, and I do find that to be so true. People use it as kind of like this famous buzzword now. They just use it in like every sentence. So this is a narcissist, this is a narcissist, and it is more deep. Like the actual personality core characteristics to have all of them is actually quite rare. I do admit though, because of I think like social media and the validation that comes with that, that people become very self-obsessed, and that is
Mhm.
obviously one of the characteristics. In terms of the other side of codependency, no, not the necessarily, possibly the more submissive side of codependency, or the person walking on eggshells, possibly mute, not speaking, and not having an opinion. The other side of that, which I think society worships more and puts up on a podium, the over controller has to be right all the time, is never wrong. And could you talk about that side of codependency as well? Because people, I think, glamorize that kind of personality
Yeah.
type and don't realize that is actually a form of codependency. So,
Yeah. When we look at that, we also would say the bully. The bully is that codependent side, right? That's a side of codependency where they only feel powerful when they're putting other people down. You can see bullying happening all the time on social media if that's what you're into. And how do you know what you're into? Just look at what your feed is giving you. Whatever your feed is giving you, you've created it. You've created it by liking and by arguing and by putting someone down or whatever the hell you're doing, like that is part of that you have to be really aware of. And before I go more into that bullying side of codependency, everything, I want to make one other comment about the eggshell side. Um, if you're with your doctor and you have questions and you're afraid to ask your doctor the questions because it might take up too much of their time, that's being codependent. If you're afraid to talk to someone in authority, you're afraid to ask a question because you don't want to feel stupid because, that's being codependent, right? So that's that side. And then we have the bully and we have the people on the scale that, is controlling scale, self-centered, arrogant. They don't need anyone's opinion. They're willing to fight to the death. I have actually a story that happened not too long ago. And it's from one of my clients, and he was shocked, and I was pretty shocked too. He went through our full mental health coaching program. He got certified. He's out there doing great work. And all of a sudden, I get this text from him. And this is about a year after he had completed and was out there coaching for a long time. And he said, I need to talk to you right away. I made a major error and I need to figure out how to correct it. And this is how easy it is to be codependent in arguing to be right. Like that's a form of codependency. You have to be right. You can't let an argument go. That's that other side of codependency. We have the fear of being judged and criticized, and we walk on eggshells. And then we have that I'm not going to let you have the last word. I'm going to have that's the other side of codependency. So he calls me. He says, I'm so embarrassed to tell you this. I said, what? He said, for the last several months on Twitter, I have been in these arguments with several people, that will go on. The thread will go on forever. And he said yesterday, one of the women that I argue with daily, all of a sudden woke me up and I needed to know what to do. He said I had posted separate from her arguing with me on a separate post. I had put that, I'm a certified mental health coach and, I do this and I do this and I do this. And this is what happened with one client's success. And this is another client's success. And he goes, all of a sudden, the woman writes down after my last sentence of trying to take her down and tell her she's wrong. She said, wow, I just saw you're a certified mental health coach and you're arguing with me every day on social media. You're not a person I would ever work with. Think about that, right? Like it put him in his place. And he said, what do I do? And I said, what do you think he should do? He said, well, I know you're going to tell me to apologize. I said, well, that's up to you. Is it the right move? He said, yes. I said, it's going to be a hard one, isn't it? He goes, oh, I hate this woman. It's going to be really hard. I said, well, do what's right. And then what's your second thing you're going to do? He said, get the hell off Twitter. I said, thank you. So, here is a guy that was in this program, certified, went through all 3 levels, had 6 months of kick butt success with clients. Yet he's out there being codependent with these several individuals he doesn't agree with, and Joshua, this is, my philosophy of social media is don't ever comment anything negative ever. Don't ever judge anyone's comment. Don't ever tell them they're wrong. Don't do it. It doesn't mean they don't care what you think. No one really cares what you think. I hate to tell you this. It's true. People don't care what I think on social media. Okay. No one cares about anyone but themselves 99% of the time. So if you think you're going to rock this world because you're putting a post up pro Trump, anti Trump, pro Biden, anti Biden, or whoever the hell you're talking about, if you think you're going to make a difference in this world, the odds are pretty damn small. But if you go on the opposite side and you start posting positive things, good news messages, one of the things I love to do, Joshua, is that I'll find there's this thing. I wish I knew the name of it. It's got to be a website, but it's called Good News Something. And I'll find these little clips that they'll put up of a picture of a FedEx delivery man. Just the other day, they showed a video of him. He went to deliver at someone's house, and their American flag was wrapped around their pole. Well, in America, we hate that stuff. We want the flag to be flowing freely and all that. So he delivers the package. He unfurls the American flag. He takes the pole off, unfurls it, puts it back up correctly, and walks away. Well, the people happen to have a video on their doorbell that captured him doing the whole thing. Okay, post that crap on social media. There's these, I've found these videos. If people go to my Facebook page, you're going to love my Facebook page. There's pictures recently of people saving condors, these massive birds that were hurt. There's another one I put of a woman saving a bald eagle that was hurt. Another, I've got all of these really cool things. In London, there's a hairstylist that every Sunday goes around the slum homeless areas in London and does haircuts for free. Crap, that's on my wall in a heartbeat, So if you really want to use social media to the highest degree possible, and why I believe it was created, is we only post uplifting information. We don't post judgmental information. We don't post anything other than what would lift someone's spirits, That's a way to get the hell out of a codependent response system that says, I've got to put you down. When someone posts about 12 steps, I don't say anything. There's no need for me to. If someone wants my opinion on 12-step, they'll ask me. Or if someone wants my opinion on 12-step, they'll read the book or they'll watch videos. I don't have to tell them that they're wrong or I disagree with them or I think there's a better way. That's not my place unless I'm asked. Now, if I'm asked, heck yes, I'll tell you very lovingly my opinion on everything that you want to know. But if I'm not asked, I'm not sharing. And I think that is the wise way to use social media.
That is, yeah. When you were saying that, David, I know this was a huge thing for me. Oh my. Before we started working together, I would get in these tangents with people all the time on social media. And in the last year, that has been a huge thing for me. Like, I think with your style of coaching, it's really, I think in a nutshell, it's growing up. We're going to mature now. And I think with what people don't really understand about life coaching, it's really, I think, life skills coaching. And I don't mean like things like learning to drive and stuff like that, but learning how to handle rejection, learning how to deal with emotions, learning how to converse, learning how to build relationships, sustain relationships in a healthy way. It's the life skills part of it which is so important. And even like you were saying with social media, it's so easy. If you don't like something, you can literally just scroll across it. You can unfriend the person, and you can. I'm just crossing off a notification, and you can. It's so easily just bypass it. You don't have to every time you disagree with something get into a bloodbath argument online to get your point across and feel like you've won. And it's a very subtle form of coach. What people would never even think. People would think that's submissive. You're not saying your opinion. You need to like put the other person down. I just wanted to say that about putting the people down as well. I feel as though in the world at large, I feel as though with kindness, empathy, compassion, these traits are so pushed down in society as being, things that are not as seen in high regard. They should be minimized, especially I find in men. Not showing, expressing any form of kindness, of compassion. And then we wonder why the world's in such a horrific place. But it's so idolized to put the people down, to feel like you're the big strong person in the room. It's so backwards to me. I've never quite understood that. So, um, I know we've gone on, David, a bit of a tangent there. And I do really appreciate your time, and I can't wait to kind of piece all this interview together. Really, just one last thing. We've got about 8 minutes left, David. Is there any little closing message, anything we've spoken about, just to bring it home?
Joshua, I think the number one thing is that, we created a goal achievement program in 1996 called the One Thing Theory. And we really believe it's the best goal achievement program in the world. Our book, Focus, Slay Your Goals, where we explain the One Thing Theory, was selected by bookauthority.org as one of the top 100 goal setting books ever written. It is the greatest literary achievement we've ever had. They put us right next to Dale Carnegie, as a matter of fact, one of the greatest writers on personal growth the world has ever known. And in the One Thing Theory, as a matter of fact, this is the book. If people want to pick it up and if you can read it, it's a little reflection there. But Focus, Slay Your Goals on Amazon.com. But in there we say, what is the One Thing Theory? The One Thing Theory states that at any given time in life, there's only one goal to go after. It's the one you've denied, delayed, procrastinated. It's the one you don't want to do. Now, when I share that with people, they go, that doesn't sound like fun. Like, I came to you because I want to, make $1 million a year, or I want to be a size 2, or I want to be whatever it might be. And I'll go, well, we'll get there. But I'll tell you something, that whatever it is that you've denied, delayed, procrastinated, whatever it is that you don't want to work on is what's holding you back from everything you want in life. And it's really true. Now, finding that one thing can take a little bit of effort, which we have a program to help people find their one thing, but what is it? Is it a financial challenge that's been going on for a long time? Is it a relationship challenge that goes from one to another? Is it a job search challenge that is it a health? Is it an addiction? What's the one thing? Is it your taxes in the United States? I'll tell you an interesting story. I remember this couple coming, and this is a number of years ago, they wanted to work with me because they were having trouble in their marriage. And we do marriage counseling differently. I work with each individual separately instead of in the same room at the same time. And it only took about 4 sessions to find out that their constant arguing was due to the fact that the wife had 7 years of taxes she had never done, and the IRS was hassling them. So every time they got into an argument, it basically would start off because we got another letter from the IRS. What have you done with your taxes? She would say nothing, and he would flip out. So I said to her one day, I said, hey, I can take care of all of your marriage issues because there's nothing wrong with your marriage. You are procrastinating. Your one thing is that thing you've denied, delayed, procrastinated on. It's killing you. It's killing your credit score. It's killing your marriage. When are we going to get working? And so we ended up getting her, she had to hire what's called a forensic accountant to go back over the 7 years and to help her start catching up. It took her several weekends of like 10-hour days, Saturday and Sunday, and it was about a year to catch up with everything she hadn't done. But that's the one thing theory. For some of us, what's the one thing that we've denied, delayed, procrastinated working on could easily be addiction. Maybe watching us today, someone goes, holy crap, I never knew how codependent I was. I always want to talk to my doctor more about things, but he only gives me 10 minutes and I'm embarrassed to ask him for more. I've got to be independent. Hey, if that's what you found out from today, that's your one thing. Becoming more independent is your one thing, so pay attention to that thing you don't want to pay attention to. Work on that one thing you don't want to work on, because here's the secret sauce that I want to share with you, Joshua, and everyone. When you go after the one thing and you heal the one thing, every other area of your life starts to improve as well. So don't go after more than one goal at a time. Pick your one, the one you'd rather not. Yes, that's the one. Get some help, nail it, and watch your whole life start to improve.
Wow, David. Yeah, that's a brilliant closing message, David. And I want to thank you again so much for your time. I know we had some technical difficulties and it all went, didn't it? So I managed we got to pick it back up again. So what I will do, David, I'll leave your link to your website in the description box if you want to work with David. If you've got any questions, I know David's got loads of free resources. I think some of the books on your site are free, and you've got blog posts
Yeah.
and there's videos. There's so much stuff that you don't need to struggle, and there's always I always find with a lot of so especially with addiction or psychology, whatever it is, it doesn't even matter. It is in a book somewhere. So, someone's dedicated their whole life to a particular subject. You can literally borrow their information. You don't need to figure it all out on your own. So I'm going to wrap it up there, David. Thank you so much again for your time. And we'll speak to you soon, David. Okay.
It was awesome, Joshua. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye, David. Bye bye.